I want to ask you some questions. I want some participation. You ready to raise your hands? Do you prefer to be the one driving the car or in the passenger seat? Where's our drivers? Who likes to be the ones driving? All right. Who likes just, I'm very happy to just be the passenger. All right, good. All right, half and half or so. All right, that works out. How about the remote control? Who's out there like, I have to hold the remote control, and who's like, I don't need to touch that? Who holds the remote control? Yeah, less than the driving, but there's still a few people that like, yeah, I need it, right? Dinner, there's several of you out there that are like, this is where I want to go, and others, that just say, I'm happy wherever you want to go, whatever you'd like to eat, we can do that. I just bring that up because I just want to talk about, for a minute, control, right? My point is not to say we're the control freaks, but there are some out there, right? You're like, yeah, that's me. I like to be in control. But even those who don't raise their hand, I think we all like to be in control, right? There's things in life that we want to be in control. Just some just do it, right out in front, and we admit it, and others we're more passive about it. But when we think of it, there's ways that we show that in our life each day, right? To be in control, like we talk at people, not with them, right? We kind of tell them what to do. We can give people the silent treatment. We can roll our eyes. We can withhold kindness, affection, or intimacy. All little ways, little subtle ways of manipulating people to do what we want them to do, right? Control, right? We get preoccupied with life. We overspend, we overspeed, we overthink until we're overwhelmed. But that is kind of how we live. It affects our sleep. When we feel out of control, we either can't fall asleep or, some of us, you wake up at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, somewhere in there, you're wide awake until you get these things out. We get irritated, we have outbursts of anger, or some strong emotions. We see it all around us. Someone said this, I heard this quote, they said, everyone thinks they're in control until they get food poisoning. And it is kind of one of the great equalizers. Because when you are attached to that toilet or kneeling in front of that toilet, there's nothing that tells you that you are out of control than that, right? It's probably good for us every once in a while to experience that. It's good for us. But here's the thing, like as much as we love control, what we really feel is when we are out of control, when life is out of control. And that's what really gets to us. And that's what really affects us. And some of you might feel that way, even right now. Like life, the world, everything is out of control. And maybe you're asking that question, who is even in control today? Might I ask this question? Perhaps the world is not as out of control as we think. Yeah? What if the world is in perfect control? We're just oblivious to it. All we can think about is ourselves, but we don't see the world around us. But what if we could rest knowing that there's someone who is in control, the control of the universe, control of the world, and in control of our lives? Wouldn't that be great? Some of you say that would be great, but there's others that you take offense to that last thing I said. That you're okay with someone being in control of the universe, all right, taking care of the stars and all that. You're in control, you're okay if someone being in control of the world, making sure the sun comes up and all of that. When I said to have someone in control of your lives, that's where you're like, okay, that's too far. That's too far. Because I want to be in control of my life. And this is not just, non-Christians. This is Christians too. There are many Christians that struggle with God's control in their life because we want to be in control. But today, I want to challenge you on that. I want to push you a little bit on that. And I want you to let go. Let go of your control, of this need to be in control, and to see our God who is great, and our God who is in control, and our God who loves you, and He's looking out for you. So you don't have to be in control. You don't have to fear things being out of control. We're in the second week of a series called 5G. We're looking at 5 attributes of God. They all start with G. And this is why we're doing it. It's because how we think about God should change our lives. I quoted A.W. Tozer last week. Today I want to quote J.I. Packer in his book, Knowing God, a classic. But he said this: the world becomes a mad, strange, and painful place, and life is in a disappointing and unpleasant business for those who do not know about God. Disregard the study of God, and you sense yourself to stumble and blunder through life blindfolded, as it were, with no sense of direction and no understanding of what surrounds you. This way, you can waste your life and lose your soul. Listen, I don't want any of you to waste your life. I don't want any of you to lose your soul. I think as we study who God is, it changes how we hold on to life, like our control. Last week, we talked about God is glorious, right? And we said that here's the issue, that many of us, we think that God is small and people are big, and so we fear other people, how they respond to us. But we preached about how God is way bigger than people. He's the one to fear, and we fear him through our worship. Today, I want us to talk about God is great. God is great. A couple years ago, this seemed like this was the popular kind of image, or phrase. People said, God is greater than our highs and lows. Have you seen that? It was on a retreat shirt a few years ago for our students. But let's think about that God is great. And he's greater than our highs and lows. I mean, that's almost an understatement of who God is, that God is powerful. And in his power, he is in control. He's in control of many things, the universe, the world, but even down to the details in our life. And so today, as we look into the scriptures, I want us to see this, that God is great, so we do not have to be in control. God is great, so we do not have to be in control. We'll do what we did last week. We're going to start looking at Isaiah, and we'll see a big picture of God. And then we'll move to the Gospels. We'll look at Luke chapter 8. We'll see how Jesus showed us the greatness of God as he was here on earth. And then we'll come back and look at our own lives. But today I want us to look at a picture of God, and I want to overwhelm you with this, his greatness, that God is greater than anything in creation. Right, back in the day when the scriptures were written, one of the most remarkable and wonderful things was just at night looking out at the stars and the sky. I know for us today, that is not so powerful, at least when you go out here at night and you can't see, maybe you can see 3 or 4 stars. Like, wow, look at those 4 stars. And those are probably satellites anyway. But back in the day, and I'm going to help you kind of get there, when they looked up at the stars at night, they were overwhelmed with just the majesty of God. In Isaiah chapter 40, when the Israelites are kind of wondering, hey, who's in control here? Oh, my goodness. Sorry about that. That's my bad. When the Israelites are saying, who's in control? What's going on here? Does God even know about us? Is he paying attention? Their eyes were lifted up to the heavens to see the greatness of God. And here's the words from Isaiah 40, chapter 40, verses 12 through 14, and then I'll skip to 25 and 26. But it says this: who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breadth of his hand marked off the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket, or weighed the mountains on the scales, or the hills in a balance? Who can fathom the Spirit of the Lord, or instruct the Lord as his counselor? Whom did the Lord consult to enlighten him, and who taught him the right way? Who was it that taught him knowledge, or showed him the path of understanding? To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One? Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry hosts one by one and calls forth each of them by name, because of his power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. When they're wondering who God is and who's controlling the world, he says, look to the heavens. He asks them some rhetorical questions, right? Who's in control of the world? Well, God is. Well, who taught him these things? Who educated him? No one. There's no equal. There's no teacher. There's no comparison. He is. He has all this wisdom. And he's the one. He says, when you question these things, look up to the skies. Look up and see God's power. The heavens are a beautiful thing. And every once in a while, when you do get out of town and you get to the mountains or Death Valley or wherever where there's limited light, then you see the impressiveness of God's creation, don't you? They didn't have this back then. They didn't know the speed of light back then, but we know it now, right? I don't know how right we are on all these things, but through science, we figured out a few things. One of them is the speed of light, and the speed of light is 186,000 miles a second, right? So to give you an idea how fast that is, in 1 second at the speed of light, you can go around the earth 7 times. That's pretty quick, right? That's traveling at a very fast pace, right? You can get to the moon in 2 seconds. But then to get to the next star, right? The next star, right? Proxima Centauri, I think that's how you say it. It would take about 4 years and 3 months at that speed to get to the next star, right? How many light years would it take to cross the galaxy? Only 100,000, right? Just 100,000 at that speed to cross our galaxy, right? No big deal. But scientists will tell us that they think there's maybe about 100,000 or 100 billion galaxies out there. That's a big space, right? That's big, overwhelming. It'd take 2 million light years just to get to the next galaxy, right? And then a whole bunch after that. But let's look at this. Like, here's a picture of the Milky Way, right? This was taken by our own elder, Albert Sue, right? Beautiful picture. I love it. But just look at that. If the Milky Way, right, our whole galaxy was the size of North America, right, Canada, USA down to Mexico, our solar system, just, our sun and our planets, would just be about the size of a quarter. Just a quarter laying on the ground compared to the whole North America. That's just our galaxy, right? 100 billion others. Isn't that amazing? I mean, when you think about just the power there, that our God made that. And it says in here in this passage that, all right, he has marked off the heavens with the span of his hand. I mean, I know he does not operate in time and space, but to kind of just show us his power, he's like, yeah, all those 100 billion gates, that's just that in his power. Think about the sun right now. You've probably never wondered this, but how much money would it cost to power the sun, right? I know I look at how much money it costs to power my house, and all that, and it's a lot. But the sun, right? If you took the U.S. Gross national product, it's about $27 trillion, right? It wasn't 2023. Let's just round it up to $28 trillion. To power the sun for 1 second, you'd have to save all of that for 500,000 years. Not spend one penny, save it all up, and then you could power the sun for just 1 second. And yet God is powering that sun 24/7 for all these years. And all the gazillion other stars. He's taking care of that. He's powering that. Yes, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of power. That's a great God. And it says here in verse 26 that he brings out the starry host one by one and calls them forth each by name. Gazillions of stars. He knows their name. He calls them out. And you know what we heard last week? That same God that knows all these gazillion stars, he knows your name. And he knows how many hairs you have on your head, right? That's our God. He's great. He measures the heavens with his hand. He's powering everything. He's sustaining everything. In Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, it talks about Jesus, and it says he sustains all things by his powerful word. Right? It's his word that sustains it all. You're going to hold on to that. We're going to come back to that in just a few minutes. But God didn't need any creativity, any wisdom, any power for anybody. He's got all that. And so when the Israelites are wondering who's in control, he says, look up to the stars, see all that, and know that I'm in control. I have the power to control all that, and yet I know what has happened in your life. I'm working in your life. This is important for me. It's important for all of us because we get all mixed up with that. We think we're the center of the universe, right? We think everything revolves around us. And I have to come back to this many times, remembering who God is, his greatness, his power. And just a simple flip through the Psalms, there's so many verses that talk about the greatness of God. Right? And we need that. We need to remember that he is great. That it's about him, not us. So just a few, I won't read them all, but Psalm 47:2 says, the Lord Most High is awesome, the great King over all the earth. Right? He's the great one. All right? We need to remember his great love. Psalm 57:10, for great is your love, Lord, reaching to the heaven, your faithfulness reaches to the skies. For great is your love. You're the great God. You have great power and you have great love for us. You also have great compassion and peace. In Psalm 119, it says, your compassion, Lord, is great. Then he says, great peace you have given to us. Great power, for you are great. You do marvelous deeds. You alone are God. And then, as we try to fathom how great he is, and we look at the heavens and all that, then in Psalm 145, verse 3, it says, great is the Lord, most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. So even at our best, trying to understand this, we can't do it. That is our great God. And this great God cares for the world, but he knows your name. In 2004, the Hubble telescope kind of had a mission, and these scientists looked. There's stars all over, but there's this small, it's like this big part of the sky that it was black. And they couldn't figure out why it was black. So they took this telescope, they put it on that little spot. And as they did their research, as the pictures came back, they realized it's not black, it's not empty, it's not a black hole. But it was just 10,000 galaxies just further out of our view. But still, we're way beyond that. It's like these things, it blows my mind. It's hard to comprehend. But we come back to this passage. Remember, he's saying, but he's the one that made all this, and he knows your name. He knows what's going on in your life. He knows what you struggle with. How wonderful is that? Our great God is not so great that he doesn't care about us. He's so great that he does care about us. So next time you are overwhelmed, do this. Go outside and look and see the 7 stars. Or look at this photo. Remember that. And do what they said in Isaiah. Remember this. Who is great like the Lord that made all this for us? And then go back to the Lord. Just speak to him. Say, Lord, you are greater than this world, that life is out of control, but you are greater. I'm trusting in you. Remember his greatness. But let's see it now in the life of Jesus. That's how we saw God that way from Isaiah. But as we move into the New Testament, we see this picture of Jesus. In Luke chapter 8, we see his greatness. We see that God is greater than the fearful events in our life, right? Events come into our lives all the time. And here in this chapter, there's going to be 4 scary events. But we're going to see the closeness to God, his power over all these things, yet mixed with his love and his care for his people. And as we do this, I want you to pay attention to these words that fear, and there's synonyms like that you'll see in here, but also the word faith, because these words are going to come and be kind of right in the center of all of these pictures. So we're going to look at 3 kind of great miracles from Luke chapter 8, verse 22. I'm not going to read it all. I'm just going to summarize it, but if you have your Bibles, take a look at it. You can follow along. But the first one starts with Jesus' great power over the biggest storm. All right, this is a storm. And I know when this is preached a lot of times in churches, people say, well, what's the storm in your life? We're not going there, all right? I want us to be literal. Think about that. He has power over the storm, okay? He gets in the boat with his disciples. At night, they're going to the other side. And at night, the storm comes up, right? It's a serious storm. It's a serious storm because, remember, not all the disciples are good in the boat. Like Matthew, the tax collector, he's probably no good at this, you know. But Peter, James, John, Andrew, these guys, they grew up in the boat. They grew up on this lake. This is like home field advantage for them. They knew how to sail this lake. They weren't afraid of storms. They knew how to navigate. They knew the hacks, you know, on what to do with the boat and move around. But this one was too big. And they were scared, right? They were in great danger, it says in verse 23. And so what did they do? It says they went and they woke up Jesus. He was tired. I'm not 100% convinced that he was sleeping. I ought to be honest. I mean, maybe he was human. But this is a storm, right? But they came up to him and they say this. They say, Master, Master, we're going to drown. Now, here's what I don't think is happening. I don't think they're saying, hey, Jesus, we tried everything. We're gonna, you know, we're out of luck. There's nothing more we can do. So can you do something? Do you know any tricks? You know, you've been on a boat a few times. I mean, I know you're a carpenter. You know, you make boats, but you don't know a lot about sailing, but maybe you can do something. I don't think they were saying that. I think what they were saying is, Jesus, if you want to say any last prayers, now's the time. If you want to write a note to your mom or your brothers and sisters and put it in a little bottle with a cork and put it in there, maybe they'll get that because we're going to die. We're going to drown. They weren't looking for Jesus. Like, last resort, hey, is there anything you can do? Honestly, I think they just said, we're done. It's been great, Jesus. I've enjoyed this. We don't blame you for taking us out on the sea, but, you know, on a little bit. Shouldn't have done that. But he got up, he rebuked the wind, the raging waters, and the storm subsided, and it was calm. He says, where is your faith? To his disciples. And it says, and in fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him? So they'd seen him do many things, but this was outside of their mind. He couldn't do this. But do you hear the words that he said to them? Where is your faith? Really, he's saying, you don't have any faith. Because if you had faith, then you would have come to me and said, hey, Jesus, we're a little bit in over our heads here. These waves are a little bigger. We don't know what to do. You got to step in. But they didn't do that. Their fear was met with a lack of faith. But we see God, this Jesus, who has power over the weather. Okay? Just hold that. Let's keep moving. As the story continues in verse 26, they sail now to the other side, on the other side of Galilee. They step aside, they get off the boat, and they're met by a demon-possessed man. Now some of you are like, oh, that's back in the days. We don't have that today. Good thing. Really? I don't know. I think we do. You know, I think there's a lot of evil out there. And I think there's a lot of demonic activity out there. We don't see it, right? We don't want to see it, whatever. But here it is, The disciples come, this man comes up, demon-possessed, and Jesus, he casts out the demon. He says, hey, demon, you got to go. But here's what the demon says. In a loud voice, I'm not going to yell it, okay? But shouting at the top of his voice, he says, what do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, don't torture me. It says this because for Jesus has commanded the impure spirit to come out of the man. So it already said that. And now this man speaks. And his theology's spot on. What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? He knew it. He says, what do you want with me? Don't torture me. Why would he say that? Probably because he knows what's going to happen. He knows the end of the story. They probably think it's now, that Jesus is coming, so he's going to throw them all in the pit. Or they'll be tortured. But they beg him, saying, hey, just throw us in the pigs. And Jesus does. All right, he allows them to go in the pigs run over back in the lake, they drowned. But then the people come around and they see what's happening and they're in fear again, right? In great fear, they tell him to leave. Their fear, they don't have faith, right? They just see somebody who has got a great power, but they don't understand that. They say, you need to leave. But look at this story, like just a couple things before we move on. Jesus says kind of two things here that's recorded. He says, what's your name? It's important. What's your name? The man answers Legion because of all the demons. I mean, Legion, that's like 5,000, 6,000 Roman troops, so a lot of demons are in him, right? And he says, what's your name? And after he casts out the demon, this man's sitting at the feet of Jesus, and he says, I want to come with you. I want to come with you, Jesus. I don't want to be your 13th disciple. He says, I can do better than Judas on this one, right? I can take his place. But here's the second thing Jesus says. He says, return home and tell them how much God has done for you. All right? He gives them identity. He gives them a mission, right? He's the first missionary, right, to go out into the world and tell people what God has done for him. And there's something powerful there, that our God, that Jesus has power even over the spiritual world, the demonic world, even a legion of demons is nothing for him. And yet he's saying, what's your name? Calling him and giving him a mission. Go out and tell people about what God has done. Do you see the power and the love there? Let's go to the next one. This is in verse 40, Luke chapter 8, verse 40. When Jesus returned, right, come back across the lake, there was a crowd that was there. They were expecting him, but a synagogue leader named Jairus comes up to him and asks for help. Now, normally, synagogue leaders are the ones that are against Jesus. I mean, it's the Pharisees and all these people in rule. The synagogue leaders, they're always the ones that are against Jesus until life is out of control, until there's no other options. He comes to Jesus. He says, would you come to my house? My daughter, who's about 12 years old, is dying. So how old is the daughter? 12. Right? 12-year-old is dying. He says, will you come and heal? Very different than the disciples, right? That story, it just happened. The disciples, they didn't come to Jesus as like, hey, you can help. But he does. And Jesus says, yeah, I'll come. I'm going to come. But here we got like a miracle within a miracle, or a 2-for-1 here, right? In this story, before he can even get there, he's interrupted, right? There's this crowd that are pushing him around him, and this older lady comes and touches him. And she's healed. What she's been healed for? She's been bleeding for how long? 12 years. As long as this girl has been alive, this lady's been bleeding. Gone to the doctors, no help, no nothing. But when she hears about Jesus, she says, I think he can heal me. He has power. If I can just reach out and touch him, I don't need to make eye contact. I don't need to have a conversation. I just need to touch his robe. And I can be healed. That's faith. but the disciples did not have. She touches him. And then he says that strange thing, right? He says, wait, who touched me? And the disciples are like, what are you, crazy? Like, everybody touched you. We're all touching you. But they were pushing Jesus in a direction. She touched him for healing. He says, I felt the power come out of me. And then we see this lady, she's kind of, she's not going to let it go, right? He's still like, well, who touched me? And it says she came trembling. Fear. She says, I did it. But what has he said? He calls her daughter, right? That word keeps coming up in here. Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. What a beautiful thing, right? Even the great Jesus, who's can control the weather with a word, has a love to see her, who she is. Daughter, he calls her. I see you in your suffering. Go in peace. That's a beautiful story, but as the story continues, some of the servants come. Jairus' servants come and say, hey, don't bother the teacher. Your daughter has died. It's too late. Don't bother him anymore. Your daughter is dead. But what's Jesus say? Verse 50, Jesus said to Jairus, he says, don't be afraid. Just believe, and she will be healed. Don't be afraid. Just believe. Have faith. Have faith like this lady, like the daughter who just touched me. Have faith, and she will be healed. And so they go to the house, and he tells everybody out there, stops crying. She's only sleeping. And you can imagine them like, what does this guy know about that? Like, we have doctors, right? He's a carpenter. He's a little rabbi. What's he know? He'll find out. But no, she's asleep. They laughed at him. Right? But he goes up into the room. He goes with just a couple disciples. He goes with the mom and dad. And he says, with a word, daughter, child, get up. And she came back to life. With the word. Jesus, who sustains things by his word, spoke to her, and her life came back to her. She's alive. Parents were astonished, and then he tells them, he says, now don't tell this to anybody. How do they explain this? Going back downstairs. Well, she's alive? Oh, I thought she was dead. No. Well, is she dead or asleep? Like, I can't tell you. Like, okay, that's awkward, but whatever. But you see what's happening here? That Jesus is showing his power over sickness and in death. And he's calling, daughter, child, come alive. See, his power is there. And he's saying, you are afraid, and rightly so. But I'm asking you just to believe. Exchange that fear for belief, because I'm powerful, and I can do amazing things to my children, to my daughters, to my sons. Don't be afraid, believe. This is an opportunity for us. We can either live in fear and be overwhelmed at every single thing, right? And there's plenty of things to cause us fear, right? But we can live that way and we just run our lives ruled by fear of others and fear of things and fear of control or lack of control. Or we can say, I believe in you and put in my faith in you. I'm going to trust you because you are a powerful, great God. And I will choose to live by faith. I will walk by faith, not by sight. And we can choose to either, hey, I'm not going to bother Jesus with this one. I'm going to take care of things myself. Or we can choose to bother Jesus and keep coming to him and say, hey, I'm back, I need you. I'm starting to worry, I'm starting to get scared, I'm starting to lose faith, but I'm coming back to you. Will you bother Jesus, or will you let him be? Praise the Lord. that even though he's great, he can be bothered by us. He wants us to come to him with the events in our life. What does this all mean? Let's put this together. That if God is great, that we don't have to be in control, right? I don't want us to live like kind of this practical atheist where we say, yeah, God is great, God is good, he's in control, but not in my life. I'm going to take care of myself. I don't want us to live that way. We have to just keep our eyes on Jesus, no matter what happens in life. In Luke chapter 12, again, I won't read it all, but you've heard it before, many of you, where he's saying, you guys worry so much. He says, look at the ravens. They don't worry about where they're going to get their food from. They trust God. God's going to take care of them. And if he cares for the ravens, he'll care for you. Or the flowers. They don't sit there and worry like, hey, are we going to get some water? Is the sun going to come up? God's got them. He takes care of them. And they're flowers. They're here today, gone tomorrow. How much will he take care of you? And he says this in verse 31. He says, but seek his kingdom, and these things will be given to you as well. Seek his kingdom. It's not that we don't care and we're lazy and we're like, who cares? No, he's in control. I don't have to be. No, we have a different purpose. We seek his kingdom and we live according to him. We say, in our kingdom, we have a God and God is great. And in our kingdom, he is in control. And in the kingdom of God, now he knows me and he loves me. He's going to take care of me. He's going to provide for me. So I don't have to worry about these things. I'm going to sit with him. I'm going to believe, and I'm going to represent him in this world. I'm going to try to live in that same way, live the values of heaven in my life around me, share that with my friends, the people that God has put in our lives. But there's going to be times where we get anxious. But what do we do with that? We keep coming it back. Instead of holding it on, how am I going to figure this out? Lord, it's yours. Take it. Take this. I'm going to bother you with it. With my anxiety, with my fear, I'm going to bother you with it. And Lord, can you be that great God and take care of it? So that I can have peace. We love, ever since Adam and Eve, we love to be like God. All right? We love it. That's just, God's already, he's like, I've made you in my image already. But we're like, yeah, that's not enough. I still want to be like him. And so we're tempted to do everything. All right, we got to do things. We never quit. We never stop. We never say no. Right? We encourage each other. You can do it. There's anything you put your mind to, you can do. We don't think we have limits until we're sick, until our body tells us we have limits. But we try to do everything. Right? We try to know everything. Right? We don't want to say things like, I don't know the answer to that. No. We want to tell people all that we know. We want to know all these things, and so we're constantly, gaining information. Especially now, there's just information every day because the more we know, the more power we have with our friends, the more impressive we are. We want to do everything. We want to know everything. We want to be everywhere. I want to go to that. I want to be with this. We want to be at all the different events. Every party. But that's not us. We want to do everything, know everything, and be everywhere. But those are all words that relate to God. There's only one person that fulfills that, who's omniscient, right? Omnipresent, all those are words related to God, not us. He's the one that does everything. He's the one that knows everything. He's the one that is everywhere. Let go of that desire to be God and let him do it. Let him be God in our lives. Let him be great. Let him control this universe, our world. And let him control our lives. We could walk with him in peace. So, there's the challenge. I said at the beginning, wouldn't it be great if we only had someone who could control the universe, the world, and our lives? Are you convinced? Are you okay saying, yeah, Lord, I trust you because you are great. You have power over all things. Yet you know me, you love me, and you look out for me. You call me by name. You give me a mission. You're there to bring healing into my life. May we trust in him because God is great. So we don't have to be in control. Amen?